Blessing Peters was not having a good day. She had overslept, spilled coffee on her bag, and now she was running through Seoul's busiest train station with a stack of books sliding out of her arms. Then they all fell. Papers everywhere. Students walking past. Nobody stopped. Nobody except one man. He crouched down quietly and started picking up her books without saying a word. When he handed them back to her, their eyes met. "Thank you," she said, catching her breath. "You dropped this one too," he said, handing her a small notebook with a green cover. She smiled. He smiled back. That was how Blessing Peters met Min-jun Park. Blessing was 29 years old. She had come to Seoul from Nigeria 3 years earlier to teach English at a language school. She was smart, warm, and always laughing. She had built a beautiful life here. A small apartment, good friends, students who loved her class. But sometimes, at night, she would sit by her window and look at the city lights and miss home. She would think of her mother's voice, her younger sister's laugh, the smell of rice and pepper soup from her childhood kitchen. She loved Korea, but she still carried Nigeria in her heart. Min-jun was 32 years old. He was an architect who designed buildings that made people stop and stare. He was kind and quiet and very serious about his work. His family had high expectations for him. He had never dated anyone outside of Korea before. He did not plan to fall in love that day at the train station. But life rarely asks for permission. After that first meeting, they ran into each other again at a bookstore near the station, then at a cafe. Then Blessing's friend teased her and said, "That man keeps showing up wherever you are." Blessing laughed and said it was just coincidence. It was not coincidence. Min-jun had started visiting the same bookstore on purpose. He wanted to see her again, but did not know how to say it. So instead, he read books he did not need and drank coffee he did not want, just to be near the place where she might walk in. When they finally had their first real conversation over tea, it lasted 4 hours. He told her about buildings, she told him about language. He was surprised by how much she knew. She was surprised by how much he listened. Their friendship grew slowly, carefully, like a plant that needs both sun and rain to survive. Over the next year, they explored Seoul together. He showed her hidden temples and quiet alleyways. She showed him Nigerian music and taught him how to say hello in Yoruba. "Ekaro," she said. He repeated it badly. She laughed so hard she had to hold onto a wall. He laughed too, which was rare for him. His friends noticed he was different when he was around her. Lighter, like something heavy had been lifted from his shoulders. Her friends noticed she stopped looking out the window at night with sad eyes. Love had come to both of them softly, gently, like rain that does not ask before it falls. One evening, Min-jun met her at the Han River. They sat, watching the water in silence. Then he turned to her and said, "I think I've been in love with you for a long time." Blessing looked at the river. "I know," she said quietly. "I've been waiting for you to say it." He reached for her hand. She let him take it. Nobody watching them that evening would have known that 2 years later, one of them would walk out the door without a word, leaving only a ring and a note that would break everything. "Find someone who doesn't have my disease." But that night, none of that had happened yet. That night, they were just 2 people sitting beside a river, holding hands for the first time, not knowing what was coming. And maybe that was the most beautiful part. Not everyone was happy for them. That is the part of love stories people often leave out. When Min-jun told his mother about Blessing, there was a long silence on the phone. Then his mother said, "Is she Korean?" "No," he said. "She is from Nigeria." Another silence. "Min-jun," his mother said slowly, "you know our family has certain expectations." He did know. He had always known. His parents had worked hard their entire lives to give him opportunities. They had a picture in their heads of what his future looked like. A good Korean woman, a traditional wedding, grandchildren who looked like the family. Blessing was not part of that picture. But Min-jun was not a boy anymore. "She makes me want to be a better person," he told his mother, "and that is the only expectation I care about now." His mother did not respond. She hung up. Blessing had her own worries. When she called her mother in Lagos and said she was dating a Korean man, her mother laughed at first, thinking it was a joke. When she realized it was not, the tone changed. "Blessing," her mother said, "you are far from home. I don't know these people. What do they believe? How do they live? What will they think of you?" "Mama, he is a good man." "A good man from where?" her mother asked. "You need a man who understands your culture, who understands what it means to be a Nigerian woman. Someone who—" "Mama, I have to go. I'll call you tomorrow." She sat in her apartment afterwards, staring at the ceiling. She understood her mother's worries. She understood Min-jun's mother's silence. Both women were afraid of the same thing. The unknown, the thing they could not see, the life that did not match the plan. But Blessing had not moved to Korea to live inside someone else's plan. She had come here to find her own. And Min-jun was part of that. The months that followed were not easy. There were real differences between them, not just culture, but communication styles. Min-jun was a man of few words. He showed love by doing things, fixing her broken shelf, picking her up when it was cold, remembering the exact kind of tea she liked. Blessing was different. She needed to talk. She needed to hear things. Sometimes she felt he was hiding from her inside his silence. "Tell me what you're thinking," she would say. "I am thinking nothing," he would say. "Nobody thinks nothing," she would say. He would sigh. She would fold her arms. Those were their fights. Not loud, not cruel, but real. The kind of fights that come when two people speak different emotional languages and are still learning to translate. But they kept showing up. After every disagreement, one of them would reach out. An apology, a walk, a bowl of jollof rice she cooked when she wanted to say sorry without words, a small model of a building he made for her once just because she said she liked the design. His mother eventually agreed to meet Blessing. Over dinner, she was polite, but cold. She spoke in rapid Korean she knew Blessing couldn't follow. Min-jun translated, but softened every sharp word. Blessing smiled through the entire meal. On the walk home, she cried. "She doesn't like me," she said. "She doesn't know you yet," he said. "What if she never does?" He stopped walking. He turned to face her under a street lamp. "Blessing," he said, "I am not marrying my mother. I am marrying you, if you will have me." She looked up at him. "That is not how a proposal is supposed to sound." He smiled. "I know, I'm practicing." She wiped her eyes and started laughing. He laughed too. A few months later, in the same bookstore where they had first truly talked, Min-jun got down on one knee. He had planned a whole speech. He forgot all of it. "I love you. Will you stay with me?" She said yes before he finished the sentence. The ring was simple, a thin gold band with a small stone that caught the light. She wore it home and called her mother. Her mother cried. Then she said, "Send me his photo. Let me see who has stolen my daughter." Blessing laughed and sent the photo. Her mother replied 20 minutes later with a single word, "Handsome." Everything seemed possible. For a while. The tiredness came first. Blessing noticed it on a Tuesday morning when she woke up and her body felt like it was filled with sand. She'd slept 8 hours, but she felt like she had slept none. She made coffee, went to work, taught her classes, smiled at her students. but her body was sending a message she was not ready to receive. By the second week, the dizziness started. Small spells at first, a moment of blurring, a sudden need to hold on to something. She stood up from her desk once and had to grab the wall to stop from falling. Her students noticed. "Teacher, are you okay?" one of them asked. "I'm fine," she said. "Just tired." She blamed it on the wedding planning. There was so much to organize. Flights for her family, a venue that would hold Nigerian and Korean traditions, a menu that combined jollof rice and galbi-tung, a dress she had not yet bought, a guest list that kept growing. She told herself that anyone would be tired. She told Min-jun she was distressed. He looked at her carefully. He noticed the darkness under her eyes, the way she sometimes paused in the middle of a sentence as if she had lost the word, the way she held the counter when he thought he wasn't watching. "You should see a doctor," he said. "I'll go after the wedding planning slows down." Blessing. "Min-jun, I'm fine." She was not fine. 3 weeks later, she collapsed in the hallway of her school. She was not unconscious, but she went down suddenly and could not stand back up. A colleague found her sitting on the floor, leaning against the wall, breathing slowly. They took her to a clinic. She called Min-jun from the waiting room and told him not to worry. She said she had been overworking herself. She said she would rest more. He came anyway. He sat next to her in the waiting room with his hand on hers and did not say a single word, because she knew she needed quiet, not questions. The doctor ran tests. A lot of tests. Blessing went home. She waited. She told herself it was anemia, or a vitamin deficiency, or stress, or 100 other things that sound small and manageable. But when the phone call came and the doctor asked her to come in for results, she knew. You always know. She did not tell Min-jun she was going. She said she had an errand to run. She wore a yellow dress because yellow was her favorite color, and she wanted to feel brave. She sat in the doctor's office alone. The doctor was a gentlewoman with a soft voice. She spoke carefully. She used words like chronic and long-term treatment and uncertain progression. She explained that some patients managed very well. Others faced difficult years. The path forward would involve regular appointments, medication, lifestyle changes, and monitoring. Blessing sat very still. She asked a few questions. The doctor answered them. She asked about work, about everyday life, about the future. Then she asked, "Can someone with this condition have a normal marriage?" The doctor paused. "Many people with this condition live full lives," she said gently. "But it is important for your partner to understand what this means, the good days and the harder days." Blessing nodded. She thanked the doctor. She walked outside. She sat on a bench in the hospital garden for 1 hour without moving. The sun was going down. People walked past with their shopping bags and their phone calls and their ordinary Tuesday evenings. Nobody knew what had just happened inside that building. Nobody knew that the woman in the yellow dress was sitting there trying to hold her whole world together with both hands. She thought about Min-jun. She thought about his laugh, his quiet love, the small model building he made her, the way he looked at her when she wasn't paying attention, like she was something rare. She thought about the future they had planned together. And then, in that hospital garden, something broke inside her. Not her faith, not her love, her fear. It was bigger than she had imagined, and it was about to make her do something she would regret. She did not tell him. That was the decision she made, sitting on that bench in the hospital garden. She would not tell Min-jun. Not that night, not the next day. She needed time to think. But thinking became planning, and planning became something darker, something she would not have recognized in herself 6 months earlier. She went home that evening and made dinner. Min-jun came over, they ate together and talked about wedding flowers and whether his cousin should sit next to her aunt. She laughed at the right moments. She poured him tea. and she smiled across the table at the man she loved while carrying a secret that was already eating her alive. That night, after he left, she sat on her bedroom floor and cried until there was nothing left. She thought about what the illness would look like 5 years from now, 10 years. She thought about difficult days when she might not have the energy to leave the bed. She thought about medical bills, about treatments, about asking Min-jun to give up weekends, plans, vacations, maybe dreams to help her. She thought about her mother, who had never fully accepted her. Imagine if she became sick. Imagine the whispered conversations. This is what happens. She thought about Min-jun deserving a wife who would wake up strong every morning, a wife who would grow old with him without complications. A wife's future was clear and open and uninterrupted. She loved him too much to give him anything less. That was what she told herself. That was the lie that felt exactly like love. For weeks, she carried it. She went to her appointments alone. She picked up prescriptions alone. She read articles about her condition at 2 a.m. alone, with her phone screen the only light in her apartment. Sometimes Min-jun would hold her at night and say, "Talk to me. What are you thinking?" She would say, "Nothing. I'm just tired." He believed her. That was the hardest part. On a Thursday evening, while Min-jun was working late at his office, Blessing packed her things. She did not take everything, only what she needed. She moved quickly before she could change her mind. She had already found a small apartment across the city through a friend who did not ask too many questions. It cost more than she could comfortably afford. She did not care. She stripped her jewelry first. The engagement ring. She held it in her palm for a long time. It was warm from being on her finger. She closed her fist around it. Then she opened it again. She placed the ring carefully in a small box, the kind of box you might use for a necklace or a keepsake. Then she took a piece of paper and a pen. She sat at the kitchen table and tried to write a full letter. She wrote 3 pages, then tore them up. The words were too much, too explaining, too begging. She needed something that would end it, something that would push him away so far that he would give up, something that left no door open. She wrote 7 words. Find someone who doesn't have my disease. She left the box on the kitchen counter. She did not look back. When Min-jun came home that evening and saw the box, he thought it was a gift. He opened it slowly. The ring was there. He stared at it. Then he saw the note folded beneath it. He unfolded it carefully. His eyes moved across the 7 words twice, 3 times. He stood completely still. Then he sat down on the kitchen floor, which he had never done before in his life, because his legs simply stopped working. His phone was ringing, a work call. He stared at it without answering until the screen went dark. He called her. She did not answer. He called again. Silence. He sent messages, long ones, short ones, one that was just her name. Nothing. He went to her school the next morning. The secretary said she had taken leave. Her desk had been cleared. He went to her closest friend's home. The Oni opened the door, saw his face, and said, "I don't know where she is. I'm sorry." He could tell she was not lying. Weeks passed. Min-jun lost weight. He stopped eating at regular times. He worked longer hours so the silence would have less room. He told no one what had happened, not his parents, not his friends. He was ashamed, not of Blessing, of himself, because something about that note did not make sense. He read it every night. Find someone who doesn't have my disease. 7 words. But Blessing was never a 7-word person. Blessing was someone who explained everything, who talked until things made sense. These 7 words were not blessing. They were fear. And fear, Min-jun knew, was not the same as the truth. People told him to move on. They meant well, they always do. His mother said, "This is a sign. Now you can find someone more suitable." She said it gently, but the words still cut. His best friend said, "Brother, she left. You cannot chase someone who ran." His colleague said, "Focus on work. Work heals everything." Min-jun listened to all of them and nodded in all the right places. But at night, he took out the note and read it again. He was not chasing her. He was not desperate. He was doing something much quieter and much more painful. He was thinking. He had loved Blessing for 3 years. He knew how she laughed. He knew how she argued. He knew how she apologized, always through food, never through words. He knew that she called her mother every Sunday morning and spent 15 minutes pretending she was fine before finally admitting what was wrong. Blessing was not a person who disappeared without explanation, unless the explanation was something she did not want to say out loud. The note had a clue. He had been reading it wrong. Find someone who doesn't have my disease. What disease? He replayed the last months before she left. He thought about the tired eyes he had tried to ignore, the way she had held the counter, the way she had stopped eating heavy meals. The morning she said she had a doctor's appointment for a routine checkup. He had not asked questions. She seemed fine. She had been working hard. He had respected her space. He wished he hadn't. He began to ask quiet questions, careful ones. He called her school friend not Blessing's closest friend, but a woman who had known her from the beginning, a woman named Gina who had been in the same language program. Gina was surprised to hear from him. She said she had not seen Blessing in months. Then in the middle of the conversation, she said something small, something she probably thought was harmless. "I saw her once near the hospital on Mapo Daro. I waved, but she didn't see me. I thought she was visiting someone, but she went in through the main entrance." She paused. "That was around the time she stopped responding to my messages." Min-jun said nothing, but inside, something shifted. He thanked Gina. He ended the call. He drove to his office outside his building for 20 minutes. Then he drove to the hospital. He did not know what he was looking for. He could not access her medical records. He had no proof. He only had the note, the clue, and a deep knowledge of who Blessing Peters was, which told him, without doubt, that she had not left because she wanted to. She had left because she was trying to protect him. He asked at the reception desk if they had any English programs or patient services for international residents. The receptionist pointed him to a small office down the hall that helped foreign patients navigate their care. The woman in the office was kind. She could not share names, she could not confirm anything, but Min-jun did not ask for information. He left his phone number and a note. The note said, "If Blessing Peters is a patient here, please let her know that Min-jun is looking for her, not to be angry, not to change her mind, just to talk. She can choose to not respond, but I want her to know I understand." He walked back to his car. He did not know if it would work. He did not know if she would ever call. He drove home and made dinner for one and ate it standing up because sitting at the table alone was still too hard. 3 weeks passed. Then one evening his phone rang with an unknown number. He answered. Silence. Then a voice. Quiet, small, a little frightened. "How did you know?" He exhaled slowly. "Because I know you," he said. Another silence. "I don't want you to see me like this," she said. "I don't care what you look like," he said. "Min-jun?" "Blessing, tell me where you are." She almost did not open the door. When she heard the knock, she stood in the middle of her small apartment with her arms crossed against her chest and her heart beating so hard she could feel it in her throat. She told herself, "Do not open it. You made a decision. Stay with it." She told herself, He deserves better than this life, better than you. She told herself all the things she had been telling herself for months in this small room where she had been living with her illness and her guilt and her love for a man she had tried to push away. Then she heard him knock again, quiet, patient, the way he did everything. She opened the door. He was standing in the hallway with no flowers, no gifts, no dramatic expression. He was wearing the gray jacket she had always liked. He looked thinner, older, maybe. His eyes found hers immediately. Neither of them spoke. Then he held up the note, the small piece of paper, 7 words in her handwriting. "Because you made a decision for both of us," he said. Her eyes filled with water. She stepped back from the door. He walked inside. The apartment was small, 1 room, 1 window, a kettle on the counter. There were medical pamphlets on the table, a pill organizer, a notebook where she had been writing things down, questions, dates, side effects. He saw all of it. She watched him see it and felt the shame rise up in her chest like a wave. "Blessing," he said gently. "Please don't say you feel sorry for me. I cannot take that, not from you." "I don't feel sorry for you," he said. "I feel angry at you." She looked up. "You took something from me," he said. His voice was calm, but she could hear what was underneath it. "You took my right to be there. You made a choice that was mine to make, and you made it alone." She opened her mouth. He continued, "You protected me from the truth, but love is not protection from hardship. Love is facing hardship together." She had prepared herself for gentleness, which she could have resisted. She had not prepared herself for honesty, which went straight through her. She started to cry. Not the quiet kind, the full kind, the kind she had been holding inside for months. He sat down on the floor next to the wall and waited. He did not try to stop her. He did not offer comfort too quickly. He just waited, the way you wait for rain to pass. When she was done, she sat across from him, and she told him everything. She told him about the hospital, the test results, the doctor's careful words. She told him about sitting on the bench in the yellow dress while the sun went down. She told him about the 3 pages she had written and torn up. She told him about the nights when the pain had been bad and she had wanted to call him so badly her hands had shaken, but she had not called because she loved him too much to ask him to carry what she was carrying. She told him all of it. When she finished, she looked at her hands. "I thought I was giving you a gift," she whispered. "You were punishing us both," he said quietly. She nodded. "I know that now." He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I looked for you for months. I left a note at the hospital with my number. I didn't know if you would call. I didn't know if you were still in Seoul. I didn't even know if you were—" He stopped. She understood what he couldn't say. "I'm here," she said. "I'm still here." He nodded. He pressed his lips together. Then he said, "What do you need?" Not, "I'll fix this," not, "We'll get through this together," not yet. Just, "What do you need?" She was quiet for a long time. "I need someone to know," she said finally. "I've been carrying this alone, and it's very heavy." He nodded. "Then let me help you carry it," he said. She looked at him, this quiet, serious man who once picked up her books at a train station without being asked, who had learned to say "e caro" just to make her laugh, who made her a small model building just because she mentioned she liked the design. And for the first time in months, she did not feel alone. It was not the end of the hard part, but it was the beginning of something better. Nobody tells you what comes after the reunion. People imagine it as an ending, The two people back together, the music swelling, everything solved. But real life does not work like that. Real life says, good, now what? For Blessing in Min-jun, the now what was complicated. There were good days, days when Blessing woke up feeling almost like herself, full of energy, teaching her classes, cooking dinner, laughing loudly on the phone with her sister in Lagos. Days when she and Min-jun sat at the Han River and it felt like none of the last year had happened. And there were bad days. Days when her body refused to cooperate, when she was too exhausted to stand at the stove, when the medication left a metallic taste in her mouth that made eating feel like a punishment. Days when the smallest task, washing her hair, answering an email, felt like lifting something too heavy. On those days, Min-jun showed up. He did not always know what to say. Sometimes he said the wrong thing, trying to fix something that could not be fixed, offering solutions when she just needed silence. She learned to tell him. He learned to listen. They were both still learning each other's language, the language of illness, of care, of love that includes difficulty. His mother found out. That conversation happened over a family dinner that Min-jun had prepared carefully. He explained everything. The illness, the disappearance, the search, the reconnection. He did not ask his mother's approval. He told her this was happening, and he hoped she would understand. His mother sat very still. Then she said, "She left because she didn't want to burden you?" "Yes," he said. His mother was quiet for a long time. Finally, she said, "That is the kind of woman who takes care of others even when she is hurting." It wasn't everything. It wasn't a grand acceptance or a warm embrace, but it was a crack in the wall. And over time, cracks become doors. Blessing's mother flew to Seoul for the first time that winter. She arrived at the airport in a big coat she had borrowed from a neighbor, holding a bag full of Nigerian spices and her church program and photos of Blessing as a small child that she insisted on showing Min-jun immediately. Min-jun shook her hand, and she looked at him for a long time. Then she said, in heavily accented English, "You look for my daughter when she ran away?" "Yes, ma'am," he said. She nodded slowly. "Good man. Stubborn, but good." Blessing covered her face. Her mother spent 2 weeks in Seoul. She and Min-jun's mother met once over tea. 2 women from different worlds, sitting with a translator app on the table between them, finding more common ground than anyone expected. They were both mothers. They had both worried. They had both wanted something simple for their children and received something more complicated. They understood each other more than language allowed. Blessing's treatment continued. There were appointments every few weeks, blood tests, check-ins with her doctor, who reported that she was responding well. Not perfectly, but well enough to live fully. Some days were setbacks. She accepted that. Some days were victories. She celebrated those. Min-jun never made her feel like a burden. He never sighed when she was tired. He never made her feel guilty for the appointments or the medications or the days when plans changed because her body said no. She watched him carefully during the hard days. She was always waiting for him to show the first sign of regret, the small moment where his eyes would say, "I did not sign up for this." It never came. She asked him about it once, directly. "Do you ever wish things were different?" He thought about it, honestly. "I wish you were not sick, but I do not wish for a different life. This is the life that has you in it. I want this one." She looked away so he would not see her cry again. She was getting better at accepting that she was loved. It was harder than it sounded. But she was learning. 2 years after Blessing opened that door, the wedding took place on a Saturday in spring. It was small by design, not because they couldn't fill a bigger room, but because they wanted the people in that room to mean something. Family from Nigeria sat on one side, family from Korea on the other. But by the end of the ceremony, no one was sitting in their assigned seats anymore. Someone's Nigerian auntie had migrated to the Korean side to show someone's Korean grandmother a video on her phone. Min-jun's younger brother was learning how to do a handshake Blessing's cousin had invented. The room smelled like jollof rice and doenjang jjigae and flowers and joy. Blessing wore white and gold. She walked in alone, not because she had no one to walk with, but because she wanted to. She had made every step of this journey with her own 2 feet. This one was hers too. When Min-jun saw her, he pressed his fist briefly against his mouth and looked at the ceiling. 2 seconds. Then he looked back at her, composed. She saw it. She smiled. The ceremony was simple. They wrote their own words. No professional language, no borrowed phrases, just what was true. Blessing said, "I tried to love you by leaving. I understand now that love does not protect people from hard things. Love holds people through hard things. You taught me that. I am sorry it took me so long to learn." Min-jun said, "I am not a man of many words, so I will say few. You are the reason I know that a quiet life is not the same as an empty one. Thank you for opening the door." There was not a dry eye in the room. Then, during the reception, Min-jun stood to speak. He reached into his jacket pocket and took out a small folded piece of paper. People at the tables leaned forward. They could see it was old, worn from being unfolded and folded many times. He held it up. This is the note that nearly ended our story. 7 words, written in fear, delivered in love, even if it did not feel that way. The room was completely quiet. For a long time, I kept this note to remind myself of the worst night of my life. But I have changed my mind about what it means. He looked at Blessing. This note is proof that she loved me enough to hurt herself. I disagree with what she did, but I understand why she did it, and I have forgiven it completely. Blessing pressed her hand to her chest. This note also taught me something I want to say out loud, because I think someone in this room needs to hear it. He looked around at the faces watching him. Fear grows in silence. Love grows in honesty. If you are carrying something alone right now, a secret, a diagnosis, a shame, a fear, and you are keeping it hidden because you think the person you love cannot handle it, I want you to hear this. Give them the chance. Do not decide for them. Do not protect them from you. Let them choose. Real love always chooses to stay. He folded the note carefully, not dramatically, not for effect, just folded it and put it back in his pocket. He said simply, "I'm keeping this," not as a reminder of pain, as a reminder of the day we chose honesty over silence and love over fear. Someone started clapping. Then everyone did. Blessing's mother was crying and fanning herself with a program at the same time. Min-jun's mother, seated in the second row, quietly took a tissue from her handbag. The music started. Blessing reached for Min-jun's hand. He took it, the same way he had taken it beside the Han River years ago, gently and without hesitation. They did not have a perfect story. They had a real one, full of silence and fear and wrong decisions made out of love, full of searching and knocking and opening doors, full of hard days and better days, and the slowly learned truth that nobody can carry everything alone. That is not a weakness. That is what it means to be human. Thank you for watching this story all the way to the end. If this story made you feel something, share it with someone who needs to hear that real love doesn't require a perfect life, just an honest one. Leave a comment below. Have you ever hidden something from someone you love because you wanted to protect them? And if you're new here, subscribe. More stories like this are coming. Real ones, emotional ones, stories that matter. See you in the next one.